I'm Dawson Schmidt here with the latest stories and developments in this week's Commodity Roundup on Trader PhD. The USDA's crop progress report began reporting U.S. harvest progress numbers on Monday. As of Sunday, 4% of the U.S. corn crop was harvested. That was down 1 percentage point from last year's pace, but was up 1 point ahead of the 5-year average. Harvest had been underway in southern states with 69% of Texas's crop harvested. Progress was seen at 28% in Tennessee and 44% in North Carolina. Midwestern states also began their harvest last week. 2% of Illinois' corn acreage was harvested, while 1% of Indiana's was finished. The U.S. cotton harvest also kicked off in the first week of September. Progress was only reported in Texas, with 19% of the state's acreage finished. USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says progress was lagging in other states, particularly Arizona and Louisiana. Total harvest progress reached 8% complete compared to 7% this time last year. U.S. pork exports held steady in July despite being down year over year, according to the latest U.S. Census data. Pork shipments totaled 239,000 metric tons in July, nearly unchanged from the previous month, but were down 1% from a year ago. Dan Halstrom, president and CEO of the U.S. Meat Export Federation, says demand for U.S. pork remained robust across key export markets.
Really the same theme that we've heard for a while. Broad-based results from a lot of different countries are contributing to it. The leader continues to be Mexico. You look at the rest of Latin America, Central America in particular, 14,500 tons, 35% above a year ago.
Exports to China are down about 16% from last year due to lower demand, as well as tariffs on U.S. exports. Year-to-date exports are down 3.5% from last year's record pace of 1.7 million metric tons. U.S. beef exports did continue to decline in July due to the lack of shipments to China. Exports totaled nearly 90,000 metric tons during the month, down 19% from last year, and volumes were also the lowest for July in 5 years. Halstrom says much of that was due to China shutting out the U.S. out of its import market.
The vast majority of that decrease is attributable, of course, to China, which we fully expected. China continues to be the major thorn in our side in terms of lack of access, with the vast majority of the beef plants and cold storage is not listed for China.
Outside of China, demand has been resilient, especially for South Korea, where exports to the country are up 9% year over year. Shipments to Japan, the second largest export destination, are down just 3% from a year ago. Total U.S. exports reached 691,000 metric tons, down 8% for the first 7 months of the year. Soybean exports in Ukraine have been nearly halted following a lack of procedural guidance from the government regarding a 10% tariff on exports. A bill passed in July imposed a 10% duty on exports of soybeans and canola unless they are sold directly by producers. However, the Ukrainian Agri-Council said exports have effectively ceased as of last week due to a lack of procedure for documenting origin. Ukraine has been increasing its footprint in the global oilseed trade. The country is forecast to export about 3.8 million metric tons during the current season, up 16.5% from the previous season. Most of its soybean exports go to European countries, though Egypt is also a major destination. However, exports could face challenges with unclear rules regarding the export tariff. The Agri-Council said ships have been waiting at ports with commodities from producers and traders, and currently there is no mechanism in place to identify which goods should be exempted from the levies. Thanks for watching. I'm Dawson Schmidt, and this has been Trader PhD.